clear up to here.
Pew! Pew! Airsoft!
Здравия желаю, YouTube land, товарищи. It's already halfway through May, so this after action report is a little overdue. Sorry about that. And as far as this loveliness, it's about a month and a couple of weeks, a month and a week since the event, so look at that. You go to a MilSim event, you shave, you get a haircut, and then it all grows back. No big deal. For those of you beardos that are afraid of shaving for MilSim. Got to the event, took care of it right in staging.
Glorious.
It's shearing season, comrades.
If I had to get rid of my beard, he'd better fucking cut it, sir.
No big deal. So 1986, I was only 3 years old, so obviously I didn't earn these badges. I didn't serve in the Soviet Army. I was born there. So don't get all hung up on this. These were all just part of wearing the uniform, and as part of the lore, the background story of this event, this is the spin-off to the Red Divide series. Red Horizon takes place in East Germany, while Red Divide proper series takes place in Yugoslavia. 1986, alternate history. So the organizers felt that despite the hot bullets flying at each other in Warsaw and NATO in Yugoslavia, for some reason East German troops, the 35th Air Assault Brigade, did not switch out to subdued field kits. In the story, the 35th was actually being transported from one part of East Germany to another when we received our mission to deploy and intercept a NATO assault. At this event, the one disappointing factor was that NATO was just US forces. I believe there were the 82nd Airborne, so no Brits, no Canadians, no French. I don't know, somebody commented on a different video that they were going to be French at these Red Divide events. I don't know anything about that. I would love to see it. So this was an event that started Thursday night. So our first mission was actually at night, and NATO was supposed to come in and be dropped out of C-130s, and they were doing that in the dark. That was cool. So obviously we didn't have any C-130s, but it was pretty cool that there were actual fighter jets flying over our AO, doing maneuvers. And honestly, at first, in the dark, you just see the blinking lights going in the sky, and I thought it was someone using a copter drone. And as it passed, and then you realize, oh, that's really far away, and then you hear the sonic boom. That was cool. That really helped with the immersions. So that was a great start. Not a great start was how before it got dark, we were trying to set up our field tent, and our field barracks tent ended up rotting away. We were taking it, trying to get it out of the case, and first we see the fuzzy stuff growing on it, like, oh, that's bad, but maybe it's at least just on the outside. Let's try to get it out, see if it's somehow still usable. And as we take it out, we watch it like start to disintegrate and fall apart. And it was sad for me, especially because I know this was one of the legacy pieces from Eastwind. So just watching a relic of Eastwind go to pieces was sad. But it's okay. As part of our standard operation procedures for the 35th, we were supposed to everyone have 2 sets of plášť-palátky. So we were all able to donate 1 from our 2, and we built our own barracks situation, a long triangle tent. So that was cool, you know, we got to use that piece of kit in a way I haven't used before, and definitely didn't feel like I overpacked by packing 2 of them. So, bad/good start. We had 2 no-shows on our side, well, specifically on the Soviet side. I think there might have been other no-shows on the East German side. For the Warsaw Pact, there were no Polish. It was just East Germans and Soviets. For the Soviets, we had the 35th Air Assault Unit, 35-я десантно-штурмовая бригада, which I was leading as a sergeant. And we also had a motor rifle unit. I don't remember their designation, but they were the reconnaissance element of that motor rifle unit. So, мотострелковые разведчики. So we had those guys. So when it comes down to numbers, I mean, remember this is still COVID time, and from what I would find out through other interactions throughout the weekend was that some people didn't even know there was going to be Soviets. They thought it was just going to be US Airborne versus East Germans. So there were some people participating on the other side, on the NATO side, that had they known this was going to have Soviets, they would have gone Soviet. Oh well. That's why we have other episodes coming up. More installments of Red Divide and Red Horizon. So hopefully we watch our numbers grow. The world is starting to get back to normal, so we should just have numbers be increasing regardless, right? Right? Okay. So there was a total of 8 Soviets. The next day we would have another one show up, but he was more of cadre. He was never really involved in the missions per se, but more about running the event. So functionally we had 8 Soviets and a whole bunch of East Germans. We had, I think, maybe 4 East German airborne, and the rest were all motor rifles. We had 1 Ural, that's the motorcycle with a sidecar, not the big truck. And we also had a liberated, captured Humvee. At the Red Divide series, NATO usually were the ones with a big motor pool. I believe they were going to have a Humvee of their own, but that person wasn't able to show up, so I don't think they had a Humvee. I don't think they had the Mutt, or not the Mutt, the old Jeep. And but hey, they had a C-130. So as they perform their night insertion, we were to take holding positions within a wood line that they're supposed to traverse through after landing. Our own East German airborne unit was supposed to liberate their dropped vehicles. So one of their vehicles must have been blown off way off course because they never recovered it, and the other one in the dark they managed to capture and escape with. That was cool. In the middle of the night you just hear like fire break out in the distance, and then the vehicle driving away while the rest of us were holding positions. We were holding positions for a really long time. There were trenches. We were in trenches with some berms dug up to also provide us, some cover above the trench. That was handy. It was about a unit per trench. So at one point there was my guys, 4 of us, plus a couple of East Germans before they moved on to a different mission. But for the most part, it was 4 of us holding that position. We were supposed to let NATO walk into our kill boxes, but they kind of sidestepped around us. And like we could hear stuff happening out there. Every once in a while, we could see poor light discipline, something happening out there in the woods, but nothing concrete. NATO did have a Pathfinder group out there, but we were waiting, and I let some of the guys doze off. There was always at least 2 of us that were awake the whole time, because this was in the early AM hours. We were supposed to hold that position until around till 0300, and we were there from maybe 2300 Thursday night. So we were holding that for many hours. I'm getting kind of delirious, and I'm hurting from sitting like scrunched up inside the trench, and it's you know, starting to get delirious, achy, and there's honestly like about 15 minutes left before we have to pull out of our trench and get off the line. And I could not keep sitting there. I mean, I brought my 1PN58 scope, and I thought it'd be most effective on Matvey's SVD. He is just so deadly with that thing. So I should mention, for those of you not already aware, that the Red Divide events are mixed Blankfire and Airsoft. So some of the guys were shooting BBs, some of them were just shooting fireballs.
All right, test firing this PKM.
So Matt on the SVD was shooting BBs super effectively, and I decided it would be much more effective for him to use my scope that weekend, that event. So I lent it to him, and the SVD with the scope, oh, it's so uncomfortable. I let Matt sleep. He was the one that was driving the entire trip down from New York to North Carolina. I think that's where we were. So I'm gonna let him rest, and I've been using his SVD, sweeping, trying to see what we could get. But again, we were in the tree line and it was overcast, so this 1980s scope was not particularly effective. I mean, it was effective in certain directions, but not the directions we were expecting them to come through. So at one point, when I'm already too exhausted and it's only about 15 minutes left, I need to stretch my legs. I sit up on the back side of the trench, so I'm halfway exposed, and I see this weird 4-legged shadow thing. And my experience with playing in the Northeast, bear, because we've run into bears at Tulcum, we have bears in New Jersey fields, so that was my concern. It wasn't, oh my God, there's NATO. It was like, oh man, I hope that's not a bear 2 meters from me. I reach for the SVD instead of just grabbing my own 74 and spraying it. And as I'm reaching for it, I guess they realized there was someone in front of them, and it wasn't a bear. It was 2 NATO guys, and one plinks off the side of my helmet. I go down. I get patched up, buddy-aided, and you know, it's just off the side of the helmet. I'm fine, you know, like ping, and it wasn't even a direct hit. Anyway, we have buddy healing rules. I was fine. It wasn't even like to the face. It was literally to the side of the helmet. I would have, even without getting Airsoft medicked, I would have been fine. That was just pling off the side. They barely hit me. But we open fire. Everyone opens up. All the other positions start opening up into the woods. fireballs going, grenades going off. Once I'm patched up, I start tossing grenades out of the trench, and I'm like letting it cook off a little bit because I'm hoping for it to air burst. And I think for the first time ever using these Taggin RGD-5 grenades, which are very good replicas, because when you let the spoon go, it makes a pop like the real grenade, and it's got almost the exact same time on it. It's I love it. They're great. And because we're in the dark, you actually see it go off, and I could see it went off like about shoulder height, air burst, perfect throw. We throw so many grenades, expend so much ammo. It was really exciting. And this was like with 15 minutes before we have to get pulled off the line. And so we have contact, then a whole bunch of nothing. And then we pull back because we were supposed to be pulling back anyway. We pull back, we're looping behind friendly positions while they're also blasting whoever might be in the woods. And we safely managed to pull back, and we exfil from that position. And later on, we would be informed that we completely liquidated or liquefied. That was the expression given to us. We liquefied the enemy. So all that fire, grenades, fireballs, and BBs that went into the woods was for a reason. It wasn't for nothing. Urrah, urrah, urrah! Liquefied NATO invaders. That first mission was successful, apparently. I do feel embarrassed that I gave into my aches and I climbed out of there. I shouldn't have done that. That was a bad move. I did regret it immensely. I shouldn't have. My second mistake was trying to reach for Matt's SVD instead of just using my own AK. I could have just sprayed those that four-legged shadow thing, and would have been 2 dead NATO right in front of us, and I wouldn't have taken any hits. So I regret that. That's my own little personal AAR from that bit of mission. The next morning, we were originally supposed to start much later. We ended up starting earlier because we had captured a POW, and the POW sang like a songbird, told us that there was actually going to be an attack coming on our field position at a certain time. So we ended up having to change our plans, get up earlier, skip our breakfast, go assume blocking positions. Due to all kinds of delays on the first evening, a Thursday evening, we did not issue radios out because we had to sort out our shelter situation before the rainstorms came. We were expecting rain. And then we had to spend a lot of time figuring out how to make our shelter. And then we had to rush off to our mission. There was a lot of rushing to get stuff done, so we felt we didn't need radios Thursday night. And we were expecting Friday morning mission to be a lot simpler. NATO would come, we would fight them off, and just return, have breakfast, and then worry about radios after that. So while we're holding our position, we actually spot NATO coming towards us. Then they back off. And then I see some other NATO unit returning way back off, and I'm not able to communicate any of that. I leave my guys at the position and I try to run back to we have a long defense trench line and we have a field phone there. I try to get the guys there to radio in. No one's answering their radio, or the East Germans holding that line maybe never had a working radio, I'm not sure. But the radio they had, it was useless. Get to the field phone, no one's picking up the other end of the field phone. Then I spot the captured Humvee doing a lap, and apparently they decided to bring breakfast out. So I'm running across the field again, trying to intercept the Humvee, because I was told that our commander was there. He wasn't, and they didn't seem to be bothered by this intel, and they just gave me food to take to my unit. Okay, I mean, like, NATO, like, my thought was they spotted us, like it was maybe some Pathfinders, and then they reversed back, and because we saw like 10 minutes later some NATO unit walking across the field back away from us. So either NATO changed directions or they reversed direction. So we didn't see, no one seemed to be too bothered. So they just gave me breakfast. I brought it to my guys. We took our positions, and just before we could start enjoying breakfast, of all the times they would choose to commence the attack before we have our breakfast. So I run to my fighting position, assume the position there. We were trying to hold them off. We don't so much as hold them off as redirect them. They were going to come across the field towards us, and we kind of stopped that, at least for the moment, and then they continued further down. We had other Soviets and East Germans farther down the line dealing with contact with them. But eventually they did start pushing on our positions, and they were able to outflank us. And this was when my airsoft gun went down. Of all the times, I could have gotten more guys, but it went down, so I was just down to my grenades. I threw a couple of grenades. I don't know if I got anyone. There was a grenade that just whizzed by Matt. Like, it just went past his trench and landed on the other side of the trench, but outside the trench. So he was able to avoid getting hit by it. First, originally avoiding it just going past his head, and then because, he was in a trench and it detonated above the trench. It was intense, and it was sad watching my guys go down one by one before they finally got to me. When Matt went down, I was tempted to crawl out of my hole and try to patch him up and get him back up, but they seemed to be outflanking us, enveloping us faster and faster, and that didn't seem practical. So I ended up actually dying to Blankfire. A guy, he had higher ground, he had the Blankfire, so I had no functioning gun. I went down, and then watching just waves of NATO guys going past our bodies. Some of them did actually check our bodies, and I believe they took one POW. It was fun hearing from them when they're talking about how they accidentally discovered that they were in a landmine field, or they had just stumbled across a landmine and they got scared. That was cool.
Keep that tempo!
Push up! Push up!
Cover it!
The right side is secure! Push to the left!
Get across! Let's go!
Clear up here!
We back off to our, after we respawn, we regroup, and we are back to our our field position where we have that long trench line, and we rest up there. Rearm, rest. Got to use our second set of palatki when we set up shelters, because we were like out in the exposed sun in these fighting positions, so we set up some shelters. So again, like, such a simple kit and get so much use out of it at this event. We're holding that position, and we do spot NATO probing around the perimeter, around the tree lines, and at one point Matt decides to test his SVD, and later on we'd get reports that his BBs actually made it clear across that opening, and guys were even claiming hits across. Like, his SVD is so tricked out, it shoots just, you always want Matt on your side, and you always want him on the SVD. Again, I should mention this earlier, but we were getting into character because this is MilSim, simulation, and it's historical, so we're portraying a group of Soviets. So those of us that don't already have Russian names, they took on Russian names, although I tried to explain to them there aren't just Russians in the Soviet army. So there was Mikhail, Matvey, and what was my fourth guy? I'm sorry, I don't remember the name you chose to go by, but everyone ended up getting these names, so I tried my best to stick to addressing them by their Russian names to help with that. I like that. I want more of that at more events. So there wasn't much anything else of note until we ended up getting pulled off the line. We had a supply drop happen. So we end up going in practically full force, Soviets and East Germans, to retrieve supplies. I don't know if it was scripted for NATO to intercept us on this supply run, but it was a hike. I mean, it felt like a much longer hike because we were out in the sun for so long before that mission. We went out there in formation. This time we finally had our radios, but no one was on the other end. So when we were calling to get our repurposed, liberated Humvee to come get those supplies, they never responded. So we ended up hauling crates of food supplies back to our position, by hand. We got to finally have some lunch. After that lunch, we get ready for a counterattack maneuver. And we go through, leadership was very good. We had the Soviets were subordinate to East German leadership here because there's more of them, and the guy who was running this faction was portraying one of the East German paras. So he did a really good job in taking feedback, having everyone try to be on the same page, and he devised us a plan where we would be bounding towards a position, then we would pivot and get on a fighting line, and then hit NATO in their position that they've been holding since the morning. The thing is, as he was explaining it, I thought he was actually talking about us going on a different trail where we would be on the other side of the wood line. What happened was he actually had us sprinting, bounding in the open where we have seen them previously out on the perimeter, where they could have and totally did see us coming at them. Had we instead gone on what I thought he was talking about, we would not have been spotted, and we could have exerted less energy, because I'm telling you, I'm so out of shape. I would love to blame it all on COVID, but I can't. Doing the bounding in the sun extra exhausting. We're still exhausted from the big march we did earlier in the sun, and holding positions earlier in the sun. I was feeling the lactic acid in my legs. This was a bad time. No, нехорошо, вообще нехорошо. Очень неприятно. So that could have been done better. Once we get into the tree line, we pivot and we start going towards their position. And we get on our firing line, and it's bad. Because they had an L-shaped ambush ready to intercept us. The direction we were supposed to go involved trying to get through brush that's very, very thick. And I could see that on the other side, it's mostly open space, and then they have defensive positions set up to shoot at us. So they're able to hose these bushes, and even if we were to get through these bushes, we would have no cover. We'd be pushing through open terrain. It would have been a complete slaughter. We took a lot of casualties. Medics working overtime trying to get us up, and we pull back. So we weren't wiped out. We did have a lot of casualties. I think a handful of guys were liquidated, but we were definitely not wiped out because we were walking injured out of there. We returned to our fighting positions, and AAR on that. As I mentioned, we shouldn't have been bounding through the open where we were totally observed, and we exerted more energy than we needed to. Two, we had our motor rifle recon unit. They should have been sent out there to do route recon before the whole entire faction went that way. They should have sent recon before sending a major body out. They could have spotted the fighting positions, could have made out the ambush, come back and said, hey, we need to do something different. We should have done something different. So we come back and we group, and game organization decides that we have taken too many casualties to realistically defend this area, and we pull back. We end up pulling back to a whole different part of the field where there's this barn. So we abandon our Plash Palatka shelter situation. By the way, my airsoft gun is down, so I'm not shooting BBs, but I was supplied with a loaner, and I was shooting fireballs. Honestly, I wasn't shooting that much. That's the thing with MilSim. You can have a totally amazing MilSim experience and shoot very little. So fortunately, you know, there's a great group of people. I was able to be equipped out with stuff, even though my own thing went down. Lots of camaraderie. I love these events for a large portion because of the quality of the people at these events. I was able to maintain effectiveness thanks to the people that were there. So we pull off the line, we grab our necessities, we hike it out there while the Humvee is delivering heavier stuff. And there's a big storm rolling in. Big storm rolling in. By the time we get situated at the barn, we can see the storm. And the weird thing is, it looks green. It looks like it was probably all the pollen tossed up in the air, like, or, you know, some of that Chernobyl fallout is coming at us. There was it was intense, and I was glad we were in a barn. There were a couple of units that did go out to give NATO some something to be afraid of. NATO claimed our position, so there were we did leave a couple of booby traps for them. And after securing and finding no booby traps, the next morning they found one when it went off. But before that morning, in the night, we had the Soviet motor rifle recon unit. They went out there to give them hell. They went in there, tossed some grenades, and got out of there. And I believe an East German unit went to harass them also that night. So that was already Friday night, and the event runs through Saturday afternoon. So Saturday morning, we get up. There was a breakfast situation, and we're expecting them to continue pushing their assault on us. And we set up in defensive positions along a line. There is a tree grove, row of trees, a grove with some trenches. End up splitting with me and Matvey in one, and Mikhail, Misha, and man, I can't remember my fourth guy's name. They take up another position farther down. Starts out foggy, kind of miserable, wet morning because of the storm the night before. And we're holding the positions, and honestly, I thought my position was going to be the least likely avenue of approach for NATO. There was a German group sent out to go chop wood and do stuff, and I hear shooting. And I did hear shooting before, but it was like people test firing guns. But this was a lot. But nobody's raised an alarm, so I start yelling, "Тревога! Тревога!" to get people motivated. The Germans were just chopping wood while there was a bunch of shooting happening. Боже мой. Ё-моё, какие дебилы. There's a bunch of firing happening, and they're continuing to do wood. So they start lining up to get ready to get on firing line and reinforce where they're attacking from. One of the guys notices that they're already starting to come out of the tree line to our left flank, and Matvey and I, we start pushing back at them. We saw maybe one guy run back inside. I'm going at them, shooting in one direction. I'm in the tree line already. Actually, before I think I go into that tree line, I go check to see if they went left. Like, I don't want to like run and then they're gonna behind me. So I go around this berm and these bushes, and there's maybe two or three NATO guys, and I blank fire them to death. Then we push back into that tree line. We get online, we're shooting. I take a hit. Matvey patches me up. He takes a hit. I crawl to him and patch him up. And at that point, just ghosts, NATO ghosts, just coming out of there. And it seems like we fended off the attack. Looks like we successfully repulsed their attack, which was fantastic. Because it would have been really miserable if we had failed. When we get out of the tree line, like, where were all those Germans? Apparently, when they all got online, someone on their flank just took out the whole line. The whole line gone. The whole line gone. So, anyway, we managed to, I guess there must have been other Germans and the other Soviets who were holding the right flank. With, of course, our assistants managed to repel the attack, and we go back and retake our earlier positions. Seems like Matvey and I were a little too casual, because the unit we ended up fighting did come across the field, and we managed to not spot them. We were, I guess, too casual. We're bad sentries. We're bad sentries. I mean, there's no other way about it. If they managed to get across the field that we were allegedly watching, supposedly watching, that's on us. But hey, we did manage to take them out. So, then the sun comes out, it gets hot, we ditch the other layers and it's just in our KMLKs. We have our Plash Palatka set up to block the sun, and just a whole lot of waiting, The other Soviet unit, the Razvedka, they end up being deployed on a mission. They go out. More downtime for us. It's not real downtime. I mean, the enemy's still out there, and they came at us, so they could easily come at us again. At one point, one of the Razvedchiki, they're a heat casualty, and two of them are coming back. The heat casualty and his escort, and they drop him off, and I try my best to take care of him, get him to command to continue taking care of him, and his escort is returning to his unit. While he's returning there, like, just gets out of the field into the tree line, and I hear combat. There's fire. It's like, oh man, they're close. They must have survived that because they didn't come back. As Saturday progresses, we get ready for our next mission, which is we're gonna take positions to intercept them before they can come at us again. So we're back maybe like halfway to our original area that we were in. There's a road, there's a valley. So there's units set up on the flat side on one side of the road. There's units, including mine, that are set up in the valley. And the thing I love so much about these proper MilSim events is that there's a reason soldiers get issued entrenching tools. We get shovels to dig. I dug on Friday night to enhance the trench we were in. I dug Friday so Thursday night, the night trench. Friday in the multiple positions. Every fighting position I was in on Thursday did some digging to make it better. Saturday, definitely did some more digging to make the fighting positions better. Piling on stuff, building camouflage. I made burlap covers for our helmets for the entire unit so that you could use them to put stuff in there, get leaves and grass and whatever is necessary for the local foliage to get it in there to help you hide. And I'd say it was quite effective because when we were engaging the enemies across the valley, we built up our defensive positions, covered the wood up, and the wood and dirt with leaves, covered that up so we blend better. And the helmets had leaves on them, and they were brown burlap. And other units did likewise. And everyone on the other side of the valley, I don't think anyone actually saw any Warsaw unit that they were engaging. We were able to completely take out whoever was trying to go around us on that valley. They were successfully stopped. There continued to be combat on the flat side where the road was. I had all the guys in the valley. I had us pivot and start assaulting, reinforcing the side on the road. It was quite interesting when I was using my Blankfire gun to put down a guy that was decided to run, and then watch him like swan dive after all the shots. I'm hoping he went down as a casualty, not as alive and hiding, because you like, ah! It was glorious. I got to we continued our assault, and I did take a hit. Matt told me how he was running at a guy with a grenade, and number 4, I can't remember his name, he was also taking guys out. So it seemed like Warsaw Pact was last man standing, because Matt was up, pretty sure that Mikhail was up, number 4 was up, there were other Soviet units that were still up, but I don't think there was any NATO left that was still up. Там, где мы, там победа! Ура! 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 And that's how it ended. I think I was getting patched up again. Well, it was my first time getting patched up in that engagement. Not the first time I was getting patched up that day. I think I took a BB hit while I was charging across the roadway. Blankfire's going. So that was the best Southern Front event that I have gone to. I've gone to all of their Soviet Cold War theme events, so almost all of them. Red Divide 1, Red Divide 3, Red Divide 4, and Red Horizon. So almost all the ones in this series. And this was the best one. This was the best one. Red Divide 1 was at the same field, and this felt completely different to it despite being on the same field, and you gotta give them props for that. That made them. I hate when you go to an event that was held on the same field at a different time and it just feels like more of the same, and this was successfully not that. Unsuccessfully, my camera situation. I did think I figured it out better. I managed to have the battery last longer, but I wasn't able to do any shooting at night with the footage because this camera, you just have a whole bunch of nothing, a whole bunch of blackness and maybe explosions going off. I didn't bother. There was a point where I had it on but not recording, but I didn't realize it, so I ended up draining my battery. And on the final fight, I only managed to get like a couple of seconds worth of footage, like 10 seconds worth of footage before the battery died. And I had forgotten my spare batteries. I brought spare batteries. They were in this thing, but I had taken this thing off when it got too hot, and I was just in the KMLK and the Telyashka. So I wasn't able to load a spare battery. And the footage I did get, I realized that keeping the setup here in my Soviet box light is not good, because I end up shooting the side of my gun when I'm holding the gun. I didn't have this problem when I did it at Red Divide 4. The footage there seemed fine, but I wasn't really engaged in combat. See, I realized that now. Well, I realized that recently. So I think the next time I do my Soviet impression and I have the GoPro in the box light's gonna have to be on the right side somewhere. And the reason I didn't have it on the right side before was because I thought this hand would just be obstructing it when I'm holding the rifle like this. So still a work in progress as to where I can situate the camera to actually get some good game footage. We did get some other stuff from our camera phones that does break the immersions. It breaks the immersions, yeah, I know, but then we'd have almost no media whatsoever if we didn't do that. And Matt and I truly regret not doing more of it, because we looked awesome. We looked awesome in our period correct kits, and we should have done more camera whoring. But everything just seemed rushed, and then when we weren't rushing, we were exhausted. But the event was great. I'm looking forward to more from Southern Front events. This was a great time. Regrettably, I don't see more of these types of events by them or anyone else concrete on any calendars. The only thing of interest coming up is the NomSoft events coming up in the summer. Right now we're more than halfway through May, so summer is just around the corner. NamSoft. So expect to see stuff relating to that coming up. See you out there, YouTube land, товарищи. Professional. Oh, and final note, the berets like this, as stupid as it looks, this was the cool way of wearing your beret in the 80s in the Soviet Union. They would wear it practically hanging off the back of the head, and some of them, you know, slightly cocked. So that, and десантно-штурмовые войска, while technically separate from VDV, but the 35th is VDV. It's just they got separated, and they actually started out in Afghanistan in the 80s, and they were there at the start, and then I think in 81 or 82, 83, they were repurposed to East Germany. So funny how that is, because in the Red Divide series, they fly over the 345th out of Afghanistan to Yugoslavia, and our unit for this event, the 35th, was actually in reality transferred from Afghanistan to East Germany, ends up fighting in this alternate history war. That's just a background note, whatever. Are you even, who even watches this video this long? So, see you out there, YouTube land, товарищи.